Hey, so here's the title of today's class. I had a very difficult time coming up with a coherent class today. A title that really fits the different segments. But I'm going to calling it this because it's the first part of today's class. And it just feels like it's going to work the best. Okay, are we good? All right, man. So, I guess you can turn your mics on and just leave them on and introduce yourselves. Go ahead, we'll start with Anya.
Hi, my name is Anya. I'm an immunology and infectious disease major.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
All right.
All right. Wait, what year are you?
Oh, I'm a senior.
Senior.
My name is Katie. I'm a sociology major with an English minor. I'm also a senior.
Awesome.
My name is Gabby. I'm a senior, and I am a double major in Human Development and Family Studies and Rehabilitation and Human Services.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so last class we had 3 men, and I just thought, okay, let's have 3 women. And as it goes, today the 3 of you are just going to have a conversation about something that really is probably going to be outside of your obviously outside of your realm of expertise. And what I want you to do, as you're thinking about it, is just think about, just thinking really as general term. No, just weigh in. What do you think? Okay. Yeah, this is cool. I've been really. Okay, so go to the next slide. So take a look at this quote here. Okay, do you know who this guy is? Deion Sanders. Prime time was his. He was a really big time prime time. That's what he called himself, or somebody called him, football player, and then he played in the NFL, and now he's a coach. Okay, and so he made this statement the other day. So you see the statement. Look at it really well. See, so we're doing things that have never been done, and that makes people uncomfortable. We see a confident black man sitting up here. He was at a press conference after one of his games, I think, or maybe before a game, talking his talk, walking his walk, coaching 75% African Americans in the locker room. It's kind of threatening. Oh, they don't like that. So, who's he speaking to? Who's he speaking about? Who do you think? Like, you all read, just imagine you read that, okay? Imagine that you're not reading it in here. This was on CNN, okay? I pulled this off of CNN. So imagine you're scrolling through your phone and you land on CNN and you jump in this story, and that was the second paragraph of the story. Who's he talking about? Just who would you imagine he's talking about?
Maybe like white viewers or white football watchers.
Or no, he's talking to Americans, so like.
Oh yes,
Okay.
white Americans, or
White American?
honestly, maybe like even non-black Americans in general.
Anyone who's not black. Somebody else, like Gabby. What do you?
I was gonna say maybe like other white coaches, like not like coaches that are, not black or higher up on the NFL or college football.
Yeah, I was also going to say probably other head football coaches and other people that are like higher in the football league, that they don't like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe so. But assume he's talking to Americans. Clearly he's talking to a wide population of people, right? And Americans. So what makes people uncomfortable having a confident black man sitting up, leading a team and talking to people? Like what's threatening, or what don't they like? Or could you weigh into that? Like what do you think?
Maybe those particular people that he's talking about are used to seeing black men that aren't necessarily confident, that aren't necessarily people that talk their talk and walk their walk. without the approval of other head coaches that may or may not
Well,
be
just stay off
different
the
races?
coaches thing, because I think he's talking about Americans. He's talking about the American public. He's talking about you, actually.
Given the fact I don't have context, that's what I would have taken from it.
Okay,
but,
okay.
If it's about just in general Americans,
Yeah.
I think that same thing applies. Maybe a lot of people aren't exposed to black men that are comfortable with confidently walking their walk and talking their talk, whatever that may be.
Yeah, okay. Someone else. Like, say more. Like, someone want to add to that? And by the way, I'm asking this question because I read it, and I'm asking, like, I wonder who he's talking to. Like, who? I'm just curious. I'm curious. I don't know. Like, I'm curious, so I'm asking you.
About you said about like what would make Americans uncomfortable about a black man being confident. I would guess it's just a different mentality. Like people are scared of newer ideas or maybe like a different way of doing things. And if he was a famous college football player and then an NFL player and now he's a coach, and particularly like that he's black, he might just have different thoughts on how to play the game than white Americans have.
Yeah. All right.
I'm assuming.
All right. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know a lot about football.
Katie, how about you? Like, who's threatened by this guy? Wait, you're Jewish, right?
I am Jewish.
All right. Are Jews threatened by this guy?
I don't think so. I can't speak for all Jews, but
okay.
no.
Well, go ahead. You can speak for all Jews.
Okay,
You're allowed.
no.
Okay, all right. So listen, no, but let me ask you, like, who do you know? Who do the three of you know personally who is uncomfortable, who feels threatened and don't like it? Like, who do you know? Because if people are, then you must know somebody.
Well-
Wait, hang on, Katie. Why don't you?
I don't know anyone personally that would be bothered by that. I think because like a lot of football coaches are white, maybe it's like a position of power thing. Like it's uncomfortable for, not to like bring it back to other coaches, but like for other coaches and other people in position of power to see like a black man, not just a player, but like in a power position, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I want to bring it back to other coaches
All right.
because at the beginning of that particular quote, it says, "We are doing things that have never been done." And given you read the article, what does he mean by we? Who is we? That team?
He and his team.
Okay, so not coaches in general,
Yeah.
his team. Okay.
So who do you know who would be uncomfortable? You're white, right? What's your background?
I'm from Puerto Rico.
From Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Okay, so who do you know? Do you know anybody? Do you know any white people who would be uncomfortable?
I know white people, and I know people of many different ethnicities, and I can't speak on a group of people like and how they would feel about a black person in that point of, in that position of power, being a coach. Maybe I do know somebody that would feel affected by that, but they know better than to tell that to me.
Okay. Katie, would you say that, a similar thing?
Kind of. I would say maybe if there are people who are bothered by this, at least that I know personally, it's not something that they would outwardly say. At least not like, this bothers me, I don't know. I kind of agree to an extent, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I don't know, right? I really don't know. I mean, maybe it's the same for me, right? Like maybe people don't say things around me that they're really thinking.
Yeah, I kind of want to also bring it back to you. Do you know somebody in your, walk of life that would feel that way?
Well, I have a pretty wide walk of. No, I don't know anybody. Right?
Crazy.
Gabby, do you know anybody?
No, but because they don't care about football.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not
yeah.
that they, it's just like, I'm thinking about like maybe someone older in my family, but they don't care about football because they don't,
How about in Guatemala, though? How about like if there are black players or black coaches or whatever? How is that?
there's not a big black community in Guatemala. There is
Uh-huh.
a section that's really close to like the Caribbean that's more like Afro-Latino rather than
Uh-huh.
African-American, but we also don't play football.
So let me ask you this question. How about what did you learn about race relations before you came here? So you're an international student here. What did you learn about race relations before you came to the U.S.?
So for me, the I'm gonna say pivotal point of understanding really what was going on of like discrimination in this country was when George Floyd was killed.
Uh-huh.
Just because the only knowledge I had of racism targeted towards African American and black people in general in this country was slavery, and I thought it kind of stayed there. And the few things I could see like from like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something, it wasn't just like shedding a lot of light in the discrimination aspect, more like in the cultural aspect.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And then I went to a summer camp in North Carolina for a couple of years, and again, that was never brought up because
Uh-huh.
it's a summer camp for girls that are
Yeah.
10. So then in the pandemic where the media was just so a big part of everyone's day because it was basically the only thing we did, and that started coming, and then I didn't even know that Black Lives Matter existed, and then that started showing up. Like that was what I learned when I learned like what was going on in
Wait,
the U.S.
Okay, so and what was going on? What is going on in the U.S.?
So again, from like what I gathered, is just that the country still has a big racial disparity in a lot of different like situations, like for example in health, in education, in just community outreach opportunities, mostly targeted towards black people and people of color in general. And it's because of a systematic way of thinking that has been coming since slavery and has just modified to modern day, but is still disadjusted to what the world is now. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
Yeah, no, okay, that's cool. That's good. I hear what you're saying. Let me go to Katie. Do you have anything you would add to that? Like, what have you?
I don't know. I'm from Texas, so I've been, I think like, I don't know. I think Gabby's right. Like, it's easy to see, or I guess, I'm nervous. I guess events that have like happened in the past have like the murder of George Floyd and like the murder of many black people, like that kind of has brought like shown a light on like how racism is still very prevalent in the country. Whereas like, for example, my mom probably would have said like, oh, racism is over, just because like she's a white woman, doesn't know any better, like no one's ever gonna be, like she's have a fine life.
Well,
But
okay, hang on though. Without throwing your mom under the bus, right? Well, here, let me ask you a question, right? Do you? Can you like where's so and what I'm asking the three of you because I'm really trying to understand how you think about racism in the United States today, right? What I get, what I hear in this quote is, hey, people like Americans, people are going to be uncomfortable, right? Seeing this black guy, they're going to feel threatened by my presence, me as a black man, and they don't like it. They don't like feeling threatened, and they don't like the whole, just the whole thing, right? So what I hear from you is, right, and what I hear from me is, well, you don't know anybody who would feel that way, right? You haven't met anybody, right? And you're in Puerto Rico, you're our 51st state, right? So, kind of. I like saying that so people get a sense of it. Oh, you don't like that? We're not. I know you're not. Let's call it that, though, for a moment, just for the fun of it, just to provoke people. And so you don't know someone, and so I'm thinking, it's funny how we just throw these things around. Like, you know, the three of you have learned, you know, you're talking about some kind of a narrative of sorts, right, about racism, and say, yeah, here it is, and we have a couple examples, but it's like this is the assumption that we make, but yet, like, I'm not really sure what if the assumption matches what is real.
What do you mean by throwing these things around?
Well, we talk about it, right? Like, there's a certain narrative about race and race relations. There's certainly a more of a the narrative in a college classroom, for sure, is going to be the narrative. Hey, there's racism. It manifests itself in all these different ways, and it hasn't gone away. And we may not be aware of it, but it's out there, and that's just a given. So we don't necessarily measure it. We don't think about it. We don't have to even give statistics about it. We just say it, and that's the thing to say, right? There's racism, so of course there is, right? But we don't have to. People don't look at the numbers. But we don't really need that. It's the assumption that there's racism, right? So the assumption would be most people would read this and be like, oh yeah, of course. But yet if I ask maybe ask people first off, the idea that it's directed at white people, right? It's kind of like, yeah, I suppose. But if I ask just in this classroom, how many white people know people like that you could say are just, and I'm just asking white people, how many of you know people who you think would definitely be uncomfortable with him being a coach and being up there, feel threatened by it and not like it? Like, how many, like, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. Anybody in the back? So, okay, so listen. So so I'm thinking about this, right? And I just asked, and 3 hands went up. And you all know a lot of people. I'm assuming that if you know a quarter of the people who I do, that's a lot of people. And then I'm thinking about how there's this narrative in our society like this, that just gets thrown out there. And I'm like, well, I just asked. There's probably 400 white people in this room, and 3 hands went up. And I think, what's that narrative about race if only 3 hands went up? And I don't know, even, wait, who raised his hand? How many, do you know 1 person, 3, 10? Like, how many do you know? 5 or under. All
People
right.
that you know, like personally.
Okay, so anyway, so listen, so what I'm thinking about here is this narrative, right? Like you said, but maybe that's not your mom's thinking. Maybe your mom's thinking is like, wow, we've really come a long way, right? We still have racism, but that's probably her thinking, right?
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw her under the bus.
All right, okay.
Love you, Mom. Sorry.
So it's that we've come a really long way. And so therefore, like, I don't know. And so now, if that's true, and I don't know that it is, but it's just a hypothesis here, right? And maybe you don't know, maybe people don't know. Everybody knows somebody who's really feels threatened by him or uncomfortable by him. They're not going to say it, just like people don't say it for me. But even then, if people are a little bit uncomfortable, or somewhat uncomfortable, and they're not saying it, then like, how do we know that anyone's uncomfortable? You know what I mean? Like, what's that really mean? And so therefore, it's like, what's it mean that this is just a given assumption? What's it mean for race relations that this is an assumption that we have? Are you following me? That like, yeah, that like black people can say, like, yeah, white people, yeah, you don't like it. You're really uncomfortable with me being here, and like, you don't like this, and you're threatened by me. And it's like, white people are sitting back and going like, hang on, take the, actually, bro, I'm not really threatened by you at all. Like, that's cool, you're a coach. Like, all right, awesome. Like, I'm not even thinking about you and your hat. I actually have a couple thoughts about your hat, but, we can go there. And so my question to the three of you is, what do you think that says about where we're at, race relations in the United States?
Talking
Anya.
about like where we're at, that's just the first assumption, or where we're
Yeah, where we're at in terms of
No.
race relations.
But
like-
I agree with like what you're saying, because I feel like a lot of times people ask me like, oh, have you ever felt discriminated? And I'm like, no. Like, no one's gonna come up and say to me something like, oh, your accent's really bad,
or whatever, I don't like you, or
yeah.
why are you here? Or-
Yeah. And the couple, like, I think I discriminate myself more than other people discriminate me.
So you would be a person who discriminates more than,
No, me, like, I discriminate myself. I don't know if I'm like.
Oh, yeah,
understand.
okay, yourself, yeah.
I feel like a certain narrative has to be pushed in order for there to be actual significant change.
Okay, what's the narrative?
So if you're saying in general, right, that, these people are saying this is happening, this is racism, it's a serious issue, then people are going to be like, well, yeah, that really does sound like a serious issue. And then they're going to pay attention to it. And then
Okay.
people are going to have to learn.
Okay.
Whether it is or isn't a serious issue, depending on, each person,
Or each situation.
or each situation, that's not necessarily our call, I don't think. I think in reality, a narrative needs to be pushed in order for there to be actual systematic changes.
But what if, let me just play the devil's advocate.
Go
Let
for
me
it.
push back on this. But you said, but whether or not racism is really a serious issue, or right? Like situation, on different situations. But let's say it's really not. Let's say in various situations it's not that big of an issue. Then why push the narrative? Then if we push that narrative, there are issues, right? And so I'm not saying that there's no racism at all, please. And I'm not saying there's no discrimination at all. Not at all. The question is, how serious is it? And what if we push it, the narrative, that it's a really serious issue, when in fact at what point could that do more harm than good?
So let's say that the issues interpersonally aren't that big. So, I could talk
Okay.
to somebody that's brown, or I could talk to somebody that isn't
Okay.
really brown.
Okay.
And, we're A-okay. None of us have experienced, racism, whatever. But, like, I forgot her name. She was epic. I loved you up here.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Like she was saying, there are so many things set in place to keep people of color, to keep black people down, or the way that the society that we've set up now, or the system that we have now was set up, was not for people of color. The only way that can change, that there could be some sort of improvement, is if that narrative is continued. Let's not talk about socially or interpersonally. The fact that it is a systematic issue now is what's important.
Dude, okay, I love that. That's cool. Katie, is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah.
Yo, by the way, hang on. Listen, you hear that, right? This is, okay, so I'm going to come back to you in a second, though, with another question. All right?
I kind of agree with everything Anya said. I think it's less about specifics and more about like as a whole. So it's less like white people, you guys love racism. It's more of like, this is a system that has been created by white people for white people. So, and it benefits white people. So,
Okay, hang on. Can you give me, so now I'm going to push on you for a second, okay?
yay.
So, give me one way in which white people benefit.
Like any way at all?
Yeah.
Like
It's-
any way at all?
Yeah, give me something significant, right? Like imagine that you're teaching this class now, which you are, because the three of you are in a way. And so now you got to give people who are going like, oh, really? How's there systemic racism or what's going on? Now you got to give an example. Because you can't just say that without giving an example.
Sure, sure.
Like I couldn't anyway, so now I'm going to ask you to do that. And I don't expect that you'll be able to give a good one, but let's see. No, hang on. The pressure is off you.
Okay.
No, hang on. Okay, we good? Okay, I'll do it. I don't expect you to give one that if there's a skeptic watching right now going like, okay, hang on. I don't expect you to be able to convince the skeptic, okay? Because that's not where you're at. So there's pressures off of you, okay? But go ahead and try.
Okay. Well, Gabby said one, but I don't know maternal mortality rates and like infant mortality rates. Those are higher in like Black and brown women than it is in white women as far as.
Okay, so how is that a race issue? Because
Well-
that's a class issue.
Fair. Okay.
Mostly, not entirely. Because even if we look at upper middle class and
Yeah.
middle class Black women, we see these mortality rates that are higher. So
I think I think yes, it's a class issue in and of itself, but
Mostly
because-
a class issue,
Mostly
but go
a
ahead.
class issue, but because of the added layer, like you can't ignore race, like
Mm-hmm.
because of that added factor, there is a racial part of it. Because if it were, I don't know, like Jewish white women versus Christian white women, like there's not a racial factor, but when there is the racial factor, you can't argue that there's not like a racial.
So somehow race is implicated in it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. All right, I like that. Gabby, would you add anything?
Yeah, I was gonna say that if it's a class issue, then why are most people in the lower class that are dying Black and brown?
That's a really good
Because
question.
like if you said it's a class issue, which I completely agree, in Guatemala
it's
the
mostly
same.
a class issue.
It's
but go
mostly
ahead.
a class issue. In Guatemala, it's the same. It's not that doctors want to kill Black and brown people. It's just that the entirety of a healthcare system being thrown complete, because in the U.S. the maternal mortality rate is higher than any developed country,
Yeah, it's
like
pretty
by
high.
far.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
So, and 3/4 out of like those people are Black or brown, and I agree that
Wait,
it's
hang on. Okay, so now you just said something there, right? So I'm going to push back on that. So first off, you said, by the way, you hear this conversation here. What we're doing is we're saying things, we're putting stuff out into the room, and then we're questioning because you got to be precise. These are the conversations we're having all the time. And so Gabby just said something, hey, most of the death, the mortality, is Black and brown women. And so I'm saying like, well, hang on. How do you know that? What do you know about poor white people? And
So the number one reason of maternal mortality is hemorrhage, and that mostly happens when a hospital does not have accessibility to create a compression in the uterus when the baby is born.
okay.
So to the other side of what you're asking, the white women that are dying, particularly that are lower class,
Yeah.
it's, like you said, a lower class situation. They might be in lower class because of
Okay.
an abundance of reasons that are also tied to why Black and brown people are in lower class. But the difference in the amount is what I think the three of us is trying to point out.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say on that. Everything that you just said right there, if we dug into the data, we would see that the data are actually really complex, okay? I love that you're saying it. I love that you're thinking about it, and it's cool. Very cool. But what we would see is that the data are really, really complex. And what I want to say is, when we start talking about this stuff, in order to make, bro, hang on one second. When we start talking about this stuff, the problem is, it's like when he makes this, one thing that I have as a person who's teaching this class on race relations, and I'm trying to spark conversation, but I'm also trying to spark thoughtful conversation with data that are very complex. And statistics, by the way, don't lie. It's just that it's hard to get data to operationalize problems so that we're really looking at exactly what's going on. So for what you're talking about, there are actually so many issues that go into the problems to the higher mortality rate with black and brown women. It's starting with just like very early on, right? Not about, it goes beyond, it goes way past hospitalization and visits, okay? But I love that you're there. And what I'm trying to do here, or what we're trying to do, is try to get at where we miss the conversations, because like this, we make generalizations, and it's like, I'm not sure that the generalizations really help us. Like, I don't know, right?
Okay, so if we were to take a step back, remember when you said something along the lines of, is race really an issue, or like how is race something that, you compared it to something else.
Yeah?
There
Okay.
was- yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what I said. Go ahead, though, go ahead.
Okay, so
I'll-
if
I'll
we were
remember.
to just get, data out of here and let's bring out experiences, right?
Yeah?
I could have talked over here and I could have said, oh yeah, I'm from Ohio, Cleveland. You don't hear an accent, right? I grew up in Puerto Rico for 18 years and came here for college, right?
Mm-hmm.
I experienced racism from both sides. Not only from, Americans, when I went to a Model United Nations competition and somebody told, I was speaking Spanish to one of my co-delegates, and somebody said, speak our language, you're in our country. Granted, I'm not from Mexico, I'm from your country, but whatever. Secondly, going back home in Puerto
Dude, you
Rico.
should have said, we're the 51st state.
I'm not the 51st state. I'm sorry about
Go
it.
ahead.
I'm
You
sorry
can
about
use that. Use that card in your back
I'm
pocket
not gonna
for
do
people
that.
like that.
I don't really
All right,
feel
go
like
ahead.
it.
Go ahead. Get your second one.
Man, you made me forget it.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, going back home and stuff, and I don't have, a Spanish accent. If I speak Spanish, sure. But my first language is English because my mom's from, you guessed it, Ohio. I still, experience a lot of discrimination on that in that front, especially growing up mixed in a school with primarily Spanish-speaking people. There's a lot of assumptions to be made. So, I think that regardless of the narrative that's being pushed, every person, regardless of their color, let's say it's a Latin American, or let's say, somebody that's black.
Chinese American.
Chinese,
Yeah.
all these different, people of different, upbringings and stuff, they may experience it, they may not, but the fact that some of them can is still an issue.
Okay, so the question becomes, all right, so we're almost done here. I'm going to wrap it up in a second.
Okay.
But so the question just becomes, how much of an issue, right? And this is really, in a way, what we're really battling over. It's like, how much of an issue is it? And a lot of people would be what you had said, like, yeah, they just don't really see it. And if they don't see it, then it's not an issue, right? If you can't see it, then obviously it's not an issue. But at the same time, there are a lot of other people that are talking about it as though they're seeing it, as though it's obvious. And like, I don't... That also is a problem, right? Just like me never ever reading about the data on discrimination and racism, right? And then being unwilling to actually entertain the idea that this is really happening still is equally as troubling as assuming that it's happening everywhere or widespread and not even being able to come up with any way in which it's actually going on. Like, wait, hang on a second, like what's really happening? And so both sides, when we make these assumptions out here, it's just, I'm wondering, here, let me borrow your mic really fast. I'm wondering how much this just gets in the way, And part of the three of you sitting up here is really it's awesome because I think you're making very thoughtful points. Are you afraid of your question? Oh, dude. All right, man. I do think that I do have this idea that I'm not blind to the fact that there are lots and lots of people who are racist. But I'm not blind to the fact And I'm not blind to that, but I'm also not blind to the fact that I don't know how to define racism. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure. Like, the people that would be uncomfortable with this guy, they might just be uncomfortable at that hat that he's wearing. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, not to downplay it. Like, I'm not really sure. And so I'm uncomfortable with us just throwing stuff around, making the assumption that this is how America is. Like, we're a racist society. And I'm like, yeah, we're built on racism, right? But I don't know what we mean when we say that stuff. Like, I just don't know anymore. But we're going to have another conversation coming up in a second that we're going to explore that a little bit. Okay, final thoughts.
I was just going to say that maybe it comes a little bit to microaggressions inside the country, because like I mentioned, when I was living in Guatemala, I thought it was the coolest place to live. Like, the narrative that's being thrown out to other countries or like outside the U.S. is not the one that lives inside here.
Yeah, but
So-
even microaggression, right? Like, microaggression would be me saying, like, microaggression would be you. Like, oh, are you really, because you have a Cleveland accent or American accent, or I'm not sure what kind of accent you have when you're speaking English, right? Making the assumption she's not Puerto Rican. And then you would say, oh, that's a microaggression, like you made that assumption. I mean, you won, but that would be a micro, somebody else might say, oh, that's a microaggression, that he said that to her. And then what we do is we equate microaggressions with like really pretty serious racism. And I'm like, hang on a second, man.
That's what I'm saying. I think that, I don't know, but from like my understanding of living here for 3 years and then living outside the rest of my life,
Yeah.
the only sort of like racism that I can tell you I have witnessed, seen, understood in like a first degree level is microaggressions. I have not witnessed that.
And when I'm hearing from the two of you in particular, it's like, yeah, but there's a system of racism that you can't really pinpoint, and we're going to talk about it in a second. Like, there is a system that's in place that's like, you can't really see it, but it kind of holds a lot of things in place. It would be the thing that, like, there are no doctors out there at all. There's nobody in the medical world that is saying, like, hey, you know what, black and brown women, your lives are less valuable than white women's lives. Even if you're upper middle class, you're just less valuable. And so therefore, we're going to allow you to have higher rates of mortality and complications when it comes to things like childbirth. Like, nobody is saying that. I'm sure there is not a single white person in the U.S. Well, okay, there are some, but in healthcare, it's like, come on, man. And yet it's happening. So now we got to go like, okay, that's not racism the way we think about it, right? That there are people, there's this cabal, this like secret group of white people that sit around and just figure out ways to disrupt the lives of black and brown people. Like, no. But yet it's built into the system somehow. And so therefore we have to excavate it and see what's going on. And that's what I'm hearing from the two of you, three of you, right? And that's like, okay. But that takes really thoughtful analysis, right? And it takes thoughtful analysis, and we got to be really careful. And so you were putting some stuff out there, which I think, okay, is good. That's great. Because how old are you? Okay, 21. If you were a researcher studying this, you would have been able to lay out, like, hey, well, here's what happens with women, and da 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 da. Okay, final comment.
I also think, although microaggressions can be like a smaller scale, it can normalize and lead to like bigger scale things. So I think it's still important to like acknowledge microaggressions and other like smaller, no?
No, go ahead,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, cool. I think like that again can lead to like normalization of like, semi-racist thoughts. And
Accepting a certain level
Exactly.
of prejudice or discrimination.
Yeah.
Because, I hear that. I'm not saying that they're not. I commit microaggressions all the time. You know what I mean? Dude, saying the 51st state thing. You know what I mean? I'm playing around because I know all about statehood and the issue in Puerto Rico, but somebody else would be even him joking around about that is like, that's a microaggression. He shouldn't do that. And it's like, oh, come on, man. Well, I honestly don't know. When I read that, I was confused. Like, I know what I'm supposed to think. Like, I know what the narrative is that I'm supposed to think, right? I know, like, yeah, okay, here's a black person who's telling us, once again, that here's the state of black people in the United States, and here's the narrative around that. And I think, okay, I hear the narrative, like, I hear that. When I stop and ask individuals, when I ask, like Gabby here is saying, like, I've been here 3 years, and I really haven't, not that it doesn't exist, but, you know, like, the narrative of, like, Islamophobia, and there is, you know, a couple semesters, I asked Muslim women who are hijabi, like, hey, how much Islamophobia have you experienced? And I've never had, no one's ever said, like, I've experienced anything, but what I keep reading about is all the Islamophobia. And I'm like, well, what's going on then, right? And so even, yeah, it's just like, so I'm confused, right? I hear the narrative, but I'm just like, I'm not sure that the narrative is one that I really understand anymore. Yeah, so the three of you, though, I think are being really thoughtful about it. So it's cool. And it's important that your generation help people in my generation to stay kind of, even though, yo, man, I'm in this up to here, right? So even it's important that you keep the conversation going, but it's important that you have the conversation in a way that people will listen.
I mean, of course, you could have a conversation, but with people that aren't open-minded enough to actually accept the information. You know, you could have conversations. If you were talking to me right now and I wasn't open-minded enough to actually hear what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
You know, if I wasn't open to actually hearing your answer to the question that you asked, you know, I would have been like,
Yeah, but listen, at the same time, though, the open-mindedness cuts. There are a lot of people on the left. In fact, the left is pretty closed-minded, is just as closed-minded as the right, but just in different ways. And so, you know, I'm not sure what that. I hear what you're saying. Like, you got to be open-minded to hear data, but the left would have to be open-minded to hear data.
I don't think it's an issue of party, though.
No, it's not party. I mean left. What I mean is people with a more liberal orientation, more like, hey, I support these structural changes, and like, which the three of you have expressed a kind of a liberal orientation. You know what I mean? Like, hey, there's a system in place, and the system is problematic, and like, hey, we gotta fix this, and we gotta work it out, and that kind of thing. Yeah. All right. I want to move on to the next conversation we're going to have. Dude, this is awesome. You three of you are great, man. Dude. Wait, can we give them like a serious round of applause? All right, man. Dude, killing it. Thanks, man. Oh, wait. From the stream? All right, go ahead.
Silencing me right now?
No, you're back. British Columbia, how can we approach finding common ground between two black people that are politically and socially opposed to each other on the black experience today? Whoa. Okay, hang on. Jonas, we're going to ask the next two people. Yeah. All right, man. You all rock. Thanks. You rock. All right. Yeah. All right, bro. Hey, can you?
I just had a question in regards of like the question when we asked like how much of an issue is it to just throw out this sort of narrative?
Yeah.
And I was wondering, could it be possible that, of course, like systematically speaking, we have like this built-in.
Wait, hang on.
Like we may have this like racism systematically inbuilt, but colloquially in just like human interaction society, that this sort of like narrative could be taken into an extremism, and hence the racism might actually be flipped towards the player who were being racist.
Yeah,
if we,
definitely.
If we continue this narrative continuously.
Well, I see that with people on the extreme left who are really, there's so many examples of like a deep thoughtlessness and narrow-mindedness and bigotry of people who are supposed to be the most open-minded and really are not at all. So yeah, I think just flip it around.
Right, and actually, from continuing on from that question is, could it be possible that our system also flip because due to the amount of voice that we speak of colloquially?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah. Because there's a certain power in the colloquial voice, and there's a certain power in the anti-racism narrative. Yeah, dude, nice question, man. Hey, okay, your mics are on. Can you just introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name's Emily.
Hold it really close.
Okay. Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a third year BBH major with a kinesiology minor, and I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, but I'm not a Chiefs fan.
You're not a Chiefs fan? You had to just slip that in there, right? All right.
I'm Isaiah. I'm a junior right now. I'm studying political science and psychology, and I'm from like right outside of Philly.
Okay, awesome, man. The two of you are perfect on this. Can you go to that question? So, who comes to mind when you think about poor people in the U.S.?
Probably, black bulls. Like, that's what comes to mind first.
I kind of think of like lower income areas. Just
Lower
in-
income
in
areas?
general. Like,
And wait, hold the mic closer, though.
okay.
Lower income areas?
Yeah, like quality of housing
And who's in those areas? Like what people?
it tends to be predominantly black people, but there's a lot of white people where I'm from that are in those areas as well.
Uh-huh. And so how do you come up with that? Like so you think black people. Yeah, where's that come from?
I mean, like in like Philly, like there's a lot of us around there, so it's like that's just what I see. It's just observation.
Yeah.
That's what I started to notice. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So now think about it. So now the two of you have said what you said, right? You said, yeah, it tends to be just certain areas, right? And it's predominantly black and brown people?
Not in Kansas City.
Not in Kansas City, but yeah.
it-
But thinking about the U.S.
Yes, in the U.S. it's.
Okay, where'd you come up with that? Where do you come up with that observation?
That there's more like black people that are.
Yeah, that you think black people immediately.
I mean, I don't know if it's something like purposeful, but like just from being around Philly, I just see a lot of them, roaming the streets and stuff. I'm like, over time, there seems to be a little correlation.
Hey, so how is that for you when you look in a mirror and you think, okay, poor people in the U.S., the majority of poor people in the U.S. look like me. Like, how is that? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm definitely blessed to be like where I am, attended Penn State. But yeah, it makes me think like I could be out there as well with them if I like go down the wrong path or something happens down the line.
Uh-huh. Okay. Emily, how about you?
I also think about just like how lucky I am to be in the situation that I have been in.
Uh-huh. So how, Okay, well, hang on. Can you go to the next slide? We're going to come back to Jonas's question, by the way. So here's the number of, look at these numbers, numbers of people living in poverty in the U.S., right? So there are more black and brown people than white people, right? But look at the numbers, right? So Isaiah, you said that, yeah, mostly black people, right? Yeah. Okay, so now what do you think?
I mean, like I said, that was just from my observation.
No,
like,
I got you.
Yeah.
No, but it's not just an observation. It's what you walk around with in your mind, right? When you think, because when you think poverty, think poor people. Like if in your mind, anytime anyone says something about poor people, you think black people, it's like, okay, hang on, that's big, that's really important. So what's this say? Like yeah.
Yeah, it's enlightening, man. Like, it's cool to see a stat like that.
Because,
There's like a lot of white Americans that are also poor as well.
yeah, but so what's cool, like what makes it cool? Like what's good about seeing that? Or what's kind of beneficial about seeing that?
It changed my perspective.
How so?
I didn't know that there were that many like white poor Americans living in the U.S.
Uh-huh. Emily, how about you?
I think that I've like lived in like several different class areas.
Different areas, yeah.
So, like when I was in the lower class area, when I was younger,
Yeah.
I was like the only black kid there.
Uh-huh.
So
In the
like,
lower class area, you were the only black kid.
Yeah,
So so for a year, you're like, okay,
yeah.
this is not.
So yeah, it's kind of not surprising to me, but
Okay.
also like my area is more predominantly white.
More predominantly white, right. We're not talking about East St. Louis, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Isaiah, what would you say to the white people? Like, I mean, because you're not the only one, right? I mean, I know that most people are going to think black people and brown people when they think poverty. So, what would you say to lower class or white people who are in poverty? Like, what would you say to them? Like, the people, they just get disregarded, you know?
Like in what context? Like,
Yeah, well, I don't know, just whatever. Like, how would it be to be poor and white and have no one thinking that you're? I mean, Emily here is saying like, yeah, I've seen, but somebody like you, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people like you who are, you're poor and white, and you're like, hey, man.
yeah, like I definitely feel a certain way because like none of the focus would be on me. Like, so it'd be bad. Like, I wouldn't feel great about it for sure. Yeah.
Do you know why you might do things like vote for Trump
Yeah. I mean,
or
like,
vote for politicians who are saying like, hey, poor white people, you need to like, you've been shit on for a long time, and like you need to.
Yeah, I could see like, yeah, why a poor white person would do that. Yeah.
Most people in, say, like the KKK, that are still in these white supremacist groups and stuff, they're all poor, man. They're not rich, you know what I mean? They're not wealthy. They're not living in state college. So can you imagine, you know what I mean? To say, what do they think about you? It's like, here's another black guy in Penn State, two black people at Penn State. Like, yeah, you all are getting all these opportunities, and what about me, man?
Hey, they feel bad. They feel bad, man.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I'm just throwing it. I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Like, it's odd to me that does it seem odd to you, like as someone who grew up around with, who went to school and with a lot of poor white people, does it seem odd to you that we don't talk about, like, so we're talking about racism, right? And so Anya, and so the three of you, we're talking about race, all this stuff of racism, and we're having this conversation about, institutional structural racism, but what do you think these white people are thinking about all these conversations about racism that don't involve them? They're actually seen as the problem. Like, y'all white people got so many advantages, and you 15.9 million white people with all your advantages, and yeah, what would you say to them? Tell them about racism now. Tell those white people about all the racism that exists, that the two of you experiencing, that you're going to experience in your lives.
Like systematically?
Oh, whatever. I don't know. Any kind of racism. I won't even define it. By the way, do you, Do you like see what I'm asking her? Asking both of them right now? Do you like, here's the white guy, the white professor asking two black students, hey, talk to the poor white people and tell them about the advantages they have that you don't have. Explain racism to them and how they're advantaged by it. So hang on. Are you ready? Yo, bro. So are you ready for the answer? This is a question that has never been asked in a college classroom by a white professor to two black students. Okay, I built it up now. Emily, you go first. So you're going to talk to all these poor white people and you're going to explain to them the advantages they have because of racism.
I would say that one advantage that they have would be something like perception by the police.
Perception by the police.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's something that comes up a lot.
Okay. How often?
I can't really say how often, but there's like numerous cases where a black individual is like profiled because
Okay.
they were like walking downtown with their hands in a hoodie, and there was like,
Okay.
you know,
All right. What else?
I'm not sure.
I'm not disregarding that. People, young, especially young black men, have lost their lives simply because they're young black men. That's the only thing. Not doing anything, not even being in any way doing the wrong thing in the wrong place, anything at all, acting a certain way, nothing, have either A, been arrested, beaten up, lost their lives, et cetera, okay?
Another thing, I'm not sure how to say, but like a white person, if they were convicted for the same crime as a black
Okay.
person, they would have less harsh of charges,
So, not would have.
or they would be likely to have less.
They would be, to some degree, more likely
Yeah.
to have some kind of reduced charges.
Yeah.
But you don't know what degree it is, and you don't know the context. So this is like Gabby's stuff with healthcare, right? Like, we know there's something here, but we don't know what it is, right? So I'm hesitant to throw numbers out.
Yeah.
But in every situation, in some situations, it would be beneficial to be black. And there are going to be some situations, but on average, if I'm going to have to enter the criminal justice system looking like me, being as a white man, or being Isaiah as a black man, or brown man, however whatever kind of man we want to be, I'm going to choose me. So, okay. Isaiah, how about you, man? What you're going to tell these people the advantages they have?
I mean, like, I don't really know if like one group specifically has like an advantage or disadvantage. I feel like it's an equal level like playing ground. Just because, like, for instance, like you said earlier, like white people that are poor, they might be forgotten, and also like black people that are poor experience racism. So it's like two negatives. So it's kind of like equal at that point. So I don't really know if one group is necessarily like more advantaged than the other in that case.
Is the racism that poor black people feel the biggest problem that poor black people have, or is it the poverty?
Probably poverty. Yeah.
Okay, so then is it the poverty that white people have that's the biggest problem for them? So for both groups, and we're not even talking about Asians, Hispanics, American Indians, right? But for both groups, white people and black and brown people, it's the poverty is the biggest problem. That's like going to probably be like, 95+% of your obstacles here. So And so now we got to figure that out. And by the way, I'm asking you to answer a question that Anya, I'm not going to answer the question I'm asking him because I don't have an answer, right? So I don't have one, but I'm asking him to come up with an answer. And I have the power. You have the microphone. Well, we both have microphones. So I'm asking you to come up with one, but I'm not expecting, I don't know what answer you're going to come up with.
Hey, bro, I'm on the same page as you.
All right.
I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, all right. So this is the thing, though, right? This is where we're at. This is like where we're constantly in this battle. We're not talking about, we make the assumptions about racism and you know, white privilege and all this stuff, but it gives rise to a lot of problems because a lot of white people aren't feeling the kind of things that the rest of us are feeling. Even like when the three of you were saying, yeah, but you know, you got to be willing. When you were, I think it might have been you. You were saying like, you got to be willing to do the research and look at the numbers and look at the data and so on, right? But I'm thinking about these people. It's like they don't have time to do research. They don't give a damn about they're not. You talk about, you know, when we start talking about all this white racism, they just like, I gotta imagine they turn off. They're not thinking like, what's about me? Like, what the fuck, you know? A thought on that? Do you see that? You're kind of smiling. Are you with me on it? The people who you know, are they thinking about it? The kids you went to school with?
Yeah, they're kind of like, I guess, like we're on the same level, in sort of.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Hey, can you go, yeah, exactly. Can you go back to Jonas's question? Can one of you like answer that question? I'm around two black people who are politically and socially opposed to each other on the black experience. Do you know people who you're like, who you just have very different views on the black? Do you know, like, are you?
I mean, yeah, like I know people that like, like, you know what I'm saying, they black and they're like conservative and yeah, it's hard to like.
Dude, most black people are conservative, by the way, but I mean, like, really. Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, conservative.
Yeah,
Stop,
yeah.
Don't complain. If you have a problem, you know, black men in particular, it's like black people. If you tell me if you go with this. If you have a problem, it's your fault, man. If you get in trouble, it's your fault. Like, stop doing stupid shit. Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Get moving forward. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, but like it's familiar, but like most of the people in Philly, like if they do something or get caught, it's never their fault somehow. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Well, once you get caught, it's never your fault.
Yeah.
But you know, if you ask their grandmothers or their mothers or their fathers or their pastors, what are they saying? It's like, it's your fault.
Yeah.
You're being an idiot. This is where we lose track of the. Can you feel this? This is where we lose track. People have this idea that black people just make excuses for bad black behavior, and I'm like, nah, man, you don't understand black people. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my dad's kind of that way, where he's like, well, I made it out, so like, you can.
Get it out. So
Yeah.
I made it out, so you make it out.
Yeah.
I'm responsible. You be responsible.
Yeah, like I agree. Like when we had I think it might have been like 2 or 3 classes ago, like with the people, I think they robbed somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, nah, most black people probably be like, just throw them under the jail and like just, yeah.
So where do you think we get this idea from that black people are not like that? Like the black people all just want, like, they want to make excuses for all the dumb things that black people do. Like, where does that come from?
Probably like social media and like the movements and stuff. Like, I'm not saying like the movements, like the Black Lives Matter movements are wrong, but like, I think the majority of people will kind of just assume that like all black people are covering up for like other black people's behavior when that just isn't the case. Like,
Yeah.
if I see on TV that like 2 black men robbed this and that, like, I'm not gonna be like, oh man, throw money to these guys, like get them some help. Like, nah, like you gotta put them like under the jail, or just
Put them. Yeah, I know, that's crazy.
throw them under the jail.
Do you have is there another question? Sam from Texas, how quickly can these things change? How much do the expressions of these narratives lag behind the actual grievances? That's really interesting. Do you have a thought about that? The narrative about racism, it's still here. And again, I think it's still here. It's just, of course it's built into the system, right? Like, this is what Brooklyn was saying a while back. Like, it's built in, man. But how much does it lag behind the grievances?
Like you're saying, how much of it that we don't see necessarily?
Yeah, or like the group, maybe that the expression. Yeah, that's actually really. Yeah. Do you have grievances, man? How often do you experience racism?
Oh, I mean, like at Penn State, like I've had like a good amount of encounters. Like a bunch of, I think I've had like 3 or 4 people just call me the N-word, like off bat. Like, bro, like I'm walking up the sidewalk, like dude is like, bro, I was like, dang, like.
Wait, some dude, like a white guy?
Yeah, it probably happened like 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
Yeah, were they drunk?
No. Like this was at like 4 p.m. Tuesday. I mean, he could have been, but like, if bro was like an addict or something, like
just driving by, or something, walking by.
Yeah, it was like they were walking in a group, and like, he just said it. I was like, I can't just fight, bro, and then get kicked out of Penn State. So I was like, nah. So.
Damn. You? How about you?
I personally haven't had any experiences like that here at Penn State, but like I have back home with like a larger, I would say, white population, and also like it was in a lower income area, and it was like less
right.
educated people.
Okay. Hey, wait, hang on. Is there one more question here really fast? Courtney, how many in the class have directly experienced or witnessed racial prejudice? Yo, man. Hey, we'll do a class, Courtney, we're gonna do a class on that. Hey, wait, can we do an applause for these two? Yeah, that was good.